when I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
my head up.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just
gotta be you.
got it.
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Morris?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? John.
Gotta be me and dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's a
The doctor lived next door to the janitor, to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all and more.
letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, in it to win it for the long haul, baby. We're here with Mr. Avon Bellamy. You know, Mr. Bellamy, I'm reading your bio, and it says you're a writer for Be More News. The only thing is, we ain't seen you in a minute.
Well, that's true. But at the time when I did the bio, I was doing some pieces.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Avon Bellamy, the legendary. How you doing?
Hey, I'm growing old gracefully. I can't I can't say any more than that.
It's Michael Randolph. He's probably our top viewer. You remember Michael Randolph?
Yeah, I remember Mike, man.
Yeah, he escaped down to Florida. We ain't seen him since.
Yeah, but he's down there doing what he was doing up here. I think he's doing even better down there than he was doing up here.
He would probably agree.
He was putting together, he was putting together some community groups that was doing some stuff. He was training some people.
Yes. Avon Bellamy has worked as a freelance writer for a number of Baltimore magazines and newspapers while holding administrative positions with both state and city government. Everybody's worked for you.
Not everybody.
Even a mayor has worked for you.
That's true.
Author of 2 books of poetry, For Love of Woman and the Sweeter the Juice. The recently released The Weapons of Our Warfare. And now we got the memoirs. There you go,
And we
folks.
got the memoirs.
He get into the nitty-gritty in this one. The solution for getting around that came in a casual conversation with Slim, a friend I had started hanging out with, who reminded me of Howard Gunn from my Ham days. He was intelligent, quick-witted, smooth, articulate, dressed well, and could have been the poster boy for tall, dark, and handsome. He told me about the GED program and how it worked. You took a test, and if you passed, it gave you the equivalent of a high school diploma. I was ecstatic. You like to write, huh?
No, I don't, but I have to. I'll put it that way.
Tell me about this record shop you used to hang in.
It was records. It was on Pennsylvania Avenue. It was a couple of, well, more, maybe a little bit less than a half a block away from the bank that used to sit there right near Lawrence Street. and the lady that used to run it was a good friend of mine's mother.
At Pennsylvania and Lawrence?
It was between Robert and Lawrence
Yeah.
on Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
There's a little record store there that you could go in and buy records.
What else do
Black
you remember?
owned.
What else do you remember about the Avenue?
Oh, wow.
In terms of black-owned businesses. Was that our Black Wall Street?
In a sense, it was Jew mingled because we were in a really close relationship with a lot of Jewish entrepreneurs. And so there was a mix of these businesses that ended up becoming what they call the Palmer Merchants Association. Pennsylvania Avenue, Lafayette Market Merchants Association. So you had that mingling of black and white and Jewish folk there. They used to put on annual events for Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. They used to show the little kids. They would give them, Christmas baskets and let them see the movies for free. Those, especially the Regent, and was the prime one, the Regent Theater. They used to do a lot of good stuff.
So tell me about this lady, Miss Maya, who got you interested in writing.
I was in night school at the time, and she was a very interesting lady. She was very interested in students, and most of the students were adults in night school. So you had a lot of older people who were there, and then you had a lot of young people like me who had been thrown out of school in there trying to, complete my education. And she was the kind of woman that she would say and do things to spark you so that you would think. And through her, I got to meet Baldwin and some other interesting writers, because she would, have that as a part of her curriculum. It wasn't a part of the curriculum for night school, but it was a part of her curriculum for night school. So she would share these different artists and different literary figures with us that we didn't know anything about. So it was interesting. Her class was a very interesting class.
Now, at some point, Mr. Bellamy, you broke law.
Yes, I did. Quite a few times.
What was going on?
Well, a lot of things were going on at the time. That period in my life started around the time that my father and mother were breaking up as a family unit. And I had, friends, some of them knew people who were on the other side of the fence. And the guy that I used to hang out with, named Bobby Massenberg, father was into the numbers racket. And so he knew a lot of things. And his father was connected to a gambling house that was right around the corner from where I lived at. And in that environment.
Where'd you live?
500 block of Lawrence Street. And in that environment, there was just a lot of activity going on with black men. But these black men were like, if they weren't teachers or someone like that, doctors, they were, doing things that would be considered illegal. And since he knew these folks, I got tied in with them, at a very young age. I was 12, 13 years old. And I got tied in with all these criminals and went to crime school. You might as well call it that. And it just so happened that people who were a big part of that only lived a half a block away from me. And that's where a lot of the meetings would be for these young guys. These were young people. These weren't older people. They were young folks. And we would meet at their house. And of course, I didn't know anybody. All of these were people who were like in their late teens, early 20s. I think I was the oldest, was probably about 26, 27 years old. But they were all into different aspects of criminal activity, prostitution, shoplifting, stuff like that. And I used to sit around and listen to the stories and get involved with them. Some of them, one of the guys there that took a liking to me was a boxer. His name was Spike. And he used to teach me a lot of things. I thought he was teaching me about women anyway. And he was doing that when I was a kid, and the thing that fascinated me about him was that he always had these really good looking women with him, and he wasn't a good looking guy. But he always had these really good looking women with him. And it wouldn't be one. He'd have 2 or 3 of them with him. And he was, trying to point me in some direction for how to be like that. Some of his lessons caught on, and they worked really good for me later on in life. Not then. I'm, 12, 13, 14 years old. You don't know anything about any women.
Are you saying you were a pimp?
I'm saying that I could have been.
Because you never told me you was a pimp. We talked about a lot of things.
No, I was never a pimp because I couldn't do what I knew pimping required when it came to dealing with our women. I couldn't do it.
So you had your own code going in the door. You did have a code.
Yeah. You had to have a code. You couldn't be in an environment like that without a code. But my code in that situation was that I couldn't do that. You have to know who you are in a situation, because not knowing who you are can get you killed. And I've seen people who ended up dead because they didn't know who they were in a particular situation and wouldn't be taught, like you can't tell a guy. Like, there's a guy, I think I might have mentioned him in the book, but it was a friend of ours, and he'd gone to New York, because a lot of guys from Baltimore had gone to New York and was doing really good up there. And he was one of them. He was up there doing pretty good in the dope game. And then he got robbed. Guy beat him down, took his money and all that kind of stuff. He came back to Baltimore. And so we sitting around, he's talking about what happened to him. And he's talking about going back to New York. I said, first thing you do when you get back to New York is kill the nigga that did what he did. I said, because if you don't, you can't go back to New York. And he said, I'm going to try to get around that. And I said, there ain't no getting around that. If you're going to be in this game doing this stuff, that guy got to die. If he don't die, you will. Sure enough, 2 months later, he was dead because he didn't do what was necessary to be in that part of the gang. That part of the game, that's what was required. That's why I stayed as far away from drug stuff as I could, unless I could manage it differently. So I had to find different ways of managing situations, because my thing was always looking to see the other side of the coin that I was, standing with at that time. Wherever I was at, whatever I was doing, I'm always looking around me, because I know it's always somebody there that's either going to try to chump you, pimp you, take advantage of you in some way. And you got to have in your mind what you're going to do when that situation comes about. You can't be thinking about it when it happens. You got to think about it before it happens, so that you can determine how you're going to respond to it and what that response should look like and who should know about it if it's going to be somebody else involved with you. So
Alfred Nathaniel Bellamy.
My father, the Prophet Bellamy. My father was a very interesting man. he knew about that world that wasn't in the Bible. That was the straight world. He knew that world, and he knew the godly side of it too. And he was trying to keep me out of that. I didn't listen, of course, and so I ended up in it. But later on, much later on in life, when I was dealing with some guys that we were dealing with drugs, but we just wasn't dealing with heroin. And my wife, because I'd gotten married by that time, she had this dream about me having all this money, and she was telling me about the dream, but she said I looked sickly in it. And what I didn't know is that she had gone and talked to my father about it. And when she went and talked to my father and came back to me and told me what my father had said, I knew I was out of the drug business. Because by then I really understood that my father actually was a prophet, and that he did foresee and foreknow things. And what he was seeing and foreknowing for me at that point was I would make a lot of money in the drug game, but it would cost me my soul. And the minute I heard that, it was like somebody was pouring ice water down through my entire body. So I was out of the drug game after that. I had to go talk to some people to, make sure my sheet was straight. But once I did that, I was out. On to the next step of life.
Well, this is what I have not come across. We're talking with Mr. Bellamy about his newest book, Red, a memoir. At what point did you become the Incredible Hulk?
What you mean?
I mean, you don't look like a Pee Wee Herman type cat. I know you lifted a weight or something. You punched a heavy bag or something, or you just born looking like the Hulk.
No. I was always a small guy. I think when I was doing all the stuff I was doing, I weighed less than 150 pounds. But I had this different, and so did my father, had the same thing, had this different level of strength. And I had a different level of strength for somebody my size, because I could, lift weights with big guys. And I ain't look like I could lift a weight and would be lifting, with big guys. I just had that strength. It was something that actually was an advantage to me in a lot of fights, because I had a lot of fights. But, when people look at you, you're light skinned, they figure you weak. And so, folks approach you like that. And then when you small built on top of it, they figure I'm just going to steamroll this guy. And that didn't happen with me. So I ended up getting a reputation for being able to handle myself like that, which helped being on the streets. People got to know that you're real, or, you ain't got no business on the streets.
Tell me about your mom.
My mother was both my mother and father were highly intelligent people. My mother became involved with my father as a result of a Bible study that lasted for years. I think, I think elements of it is still around now, with my aunt and my uncle still carrying on Bible lessons. But, this is before any of that. My mother and father were involved in the same Bible study. My father was one of the teachers. My step grandfather was the other teacher, and him and my mother got hooked up, and she ended up pregnant. So she's a 17-year-old pregnant girl, and my father was, I think, in his 40s then. Yeah, he was in his 40s then. So it was a big scandal going on at that time. My father was seen as an outlaw, and so it was just a lot of crap, and my mother had to go through that. But she was very quick, she put her life together. She went to school, finished what she had to do. went to work for the federal government, did really good doing that, and then retired with her pension and was well respected to the degree that when my daughter went to work for the Social Security Administration in the area that my mother had worked in, people still were there that knew my mother. And when they found out that my daughter was her in a sense her granddaughter, they just transferred a lot of that stuff on to my daughter when she first started working for the Social Security Administration, federal government. She's in other places now. She works for the Department of Labor now.
So what's your favorite spiritual, Mr. Bellamy?
What you mean?
Song.
Wow. There is one. I'm trying to remember the title of it because I can hear it in my head.
Hum it.
Oh, man.
You like music, don't you?
Say again?
You like music, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. A lot of it.
Give me a gospel song.
I can't remember. I never dealt with it like that. Even when I was a minister, I never dealt with it like that.
You don't sing songs?
I don't do any singing, man. You know, I do the writing. I don't do the singing. They got other members of the family that handle that, like my aunt and all of them. They handle the singing part. I didn't get a voice to do singing with.
When did you meet Jesus, Mr. Bellamy?
My meeting with him happened, I guess the real meeting, because I had a couple. The first one I didn't recognize it as being with him though, and that happened when I was incarcerated, and I was in a situation where there was somebody I was going to have to deal with, and I was going to make it a permanent situation for them. I was going to kill them and get it over with, and on the day when I was making the plans to do that, I was looking out my cell window, making plans for how I could do it, get away with it, and nobody would know, because I was always, you know, working off of ninja energy when it came to me gonna do something to you. I wasn't gonna do it so a whole bunch of people standing around pointing their fingers saying, yeah, that's the one, that's him that did it. I wasn't that guy. I was the guy who was gonna do it. Nobody know it. And so that's what I was doing. I was trying to figure out where in the jail that I could, you know, meet this guy or somehow get him in that position and then kill him. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm looking out the window and I'm seeing all of this toilet paper floating around. I'm wondering what's going on with that, and find out that it's some guys who are unfurling toilet paper like it was a kite, so that they could, you know, just see it in the wind outside the cell window. And I'm looking at this saying to myself, these guys have lost their mind in here. And the minute I thought that, I was standing behind me. There was a form of me that was standing behind the body of me that was looking out the window. So now I'm seeing myself stand looking out the window, but I'm now behind me looking at it. And it's freaking me out. I don't know how this is happening, but I'm hearing my father's voice the whole time, loudly, filled up the whole cell, telling me every jail I was going to be in, and in the exact order, because we'd had a conversation, I think it was about 2 or 3 years before that, and he was telling me about all these guys I was hanging around with and how they was going to mess up my life and all of that, which I was kind of basically ignoring. And in that instance, I recognized that accurately he was telling me every jail that I had been in. And this was 2 years, almost 3 years before I was in any of them. And every single one of them was accurate. Every jail, he said, in the exact order that he had told me, I was in. And the only one left was the penitentiary. That was the only place I hadn't been by that in the Maryland system. I hadn't been to the penitentiary. And that stunned me to the degree that I just sat on the cot and all thoughts of anything else that I was dealing with was gone. And what I was watching now was like flashes of my life with me doing things that wasn't my nature to do, but I was doing it to prove to somebody else that I was, to be respected, feared, whatever was required for that. But it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was me fronting, in a sense, and knowing that for me fronting, I was going to do it. It wasn't like I wasn't going to do it. It was like I may not have wanted to do it, but I was going to do it. And I was seeing every one of those instances, because what God was showing me was that I was fake, I was false, and he wanted me to see that I was fake and false, and he wanted me to see who the real me was, and not the guy that I put on for the street called Reds. So that was the first encounter, but I didn't accept it as anything having to do with God. I didn't know where to put it. I didn't have a box for it, so I couldn't put it in anything. But if we go back, if we come forward to that and come to the point where I really understood there was a God, because, before that I was agnostic. I couldn't say it wasn't a God. I just could say I wasn't sure. There was stuff on the table, but I wasn't sure it led to it being God. And so the encounter that I had when I knew it was God happened in a bathroom. And I was married at the time. Me and my wife wasn't together at the time, or we were getting ready not to be together. And in that instance, I remember, because I had planned to commit suicide. I was planning to kill myself, because I was basically saying I was tired of where I was in life, and I didn't see another door. And so in that moment, God opened another door, because I basically told him, like, if you ain't real, if you don't show up today and show me your reality, I will not be here tomorrow. And that's what I was in that bathroom saying to God, if he was God. And he showed up. And that's when I knew that it was real. And that's when I started making changes. I didn't make changes immediately. I'd be lying if I said I did. I was too used to doing things my way and having things my way, and having a certain amount of fame on the streets. And I was used to that. I was used to being feared and respected. I liked being feared and respected. I didn't go around pushing people with that, because some guys did. They push you with that. I never did. I just, handle myself as, correctly as I could. My thing was always size up and know who I was going to have to kill if I was going to have to kill somebody. And I stayed away from them. I made sure that I wasn't in their circle. I made sure they didn't have nothing to say to me, because I knew me. And I knew if they did, I knew I'd kill them. And I wouldn't even hesitate. I didn't have a hesitation bone. If I was going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm saying I'm going to do it. Then I'm considering you already dead, as far as I'm concerned. My thing is, how am I going to get rid of you? Never would I do it.
It's quite a diabolical mind you got there, Mr. Bellamy.
Well, I'll put it this way. I knew the rules of my environment. I knew what I was required in that environment, doing what I was doing. And I knew better than to hesitate, because I watched what happened to people who did.
Yeah, they go at the short end of the stick.
Yeah, they did. But you could always anticipate that and prevent it, So my whole thing was, if I knew you were somebody that intimidated people and leaned on folks, I made sure I stayed away from you. Now, some of those guys liked me, and they just didn't do that to me. But there was other guys that I knew, if he ever leaned on me that way, I'm going to kill him. And so I used to stay away from those guys. I made sure I wasn't around them, that they didn't have nothing to say to me. I had nothing to say to them. I didn't make it no angry thing. I just gave them the respect that they were supposed to have, and hoped they would give me the respect that I had earned by that time. And I got lucky because that just turned out to be what it was. Just people just respected me. They liked me because I had a sense of humor. I made people laugh and stuff, but they also knew that I would put you in the ground, and that helped too.
I want you to tell a story of Johns Hopkins University.
Johns Hopkins University?
Yeah.
That's funny. Johns Hopkins University. I was at Morgan at the time. And actually, I was tired of school. I had done a tremendous amount of self-study. When I was in jail, when I was out of jail, I spent a lot of time in the library reading. That's what I did. I'd been doing it ever since I was a little kid because of my mother. My mother carried me to the library when I was about 8 years old and got me my first, I think it was 3 books they would allow you to take out, or 2 books at that time.
How to Kill a Mockingbird.
And that wasn't my first read. Look. So anyway, that my mother started me on that. And so I used the library a lot for a lot of different things, but I did a lot of studying. And so by the time I got into a true educational situation, I was well informed in a lot of different areas.
No, Mr. Bellamy, I want you to tell them, how did you go from...
I'm gonna get there.
Oh, okay.
What happened in that instance was that I was planning on quitting Morgan because I didn't see any sense for it for me anymore, and I was going to really quit. And I remember that I went to sit in a friend's car. The car was open, and I was sitting in his car, and I was smoking a joint. And I said, "That's it. I'm done. I'm quitting school. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done with this." And the whole car filled up with this voice that said, "Unless I want you to." I was shook. Now I knew who the voice was because I'd had enough of a relationship with God by that point to know when I was hearing him. And so my response to it, well, you're going to do everything because I'm doing nothing. And that was it. I figured I'm free. I ain't got nothing to worry about. I think it was either that day or the next day, my wife came home and told me something that would make me go to school. And the only thing that would have, because I wanted to creative write, and they didn't have any creative writing programs at Morgan, and which is why I took journalism. I took journalism as my way of expressing myself in writing. And so now my wife is telling me that they have a program at Hopkins for writers. The whole program, that's all it's about, is for writers. I'm like, wow, okay. So now I'm knowing God is talking to me now. I'm like, okay, this is coming from him now. So let me see how this is going to work out. So she tells me that the girl that she's working with, husband, has some influence and has seen some of the stuff that I'd written and wanted to find out whether or not I was interested in going forward with the program. And I told him, yeah, sure. I didn't tell him. I told my wife, who told his wife, and then, he came to see me. Well, he came to see me to get me involved. The minute we saw each other, instant hate. I took one look at him, knew everything about him, and he knew everything he needed to know about me in that one look. And there was no love lost between me and this guy from the beginning. But he carried me over to Hopkins. He introduced me to one of the people who was tied into the program, but wasn't one of the teachers in it. And this guy basically screamed to me. And when he saw that I was articulate and could handle conversation well and deal with various other kinds of things that he was asking me, he felt a little more comfortable about introducing me to the people who ran the writing seminars. I didn't know anything about a writing seminar. Didn't know that it had been there for years. Didn't know it was turning out all these top level writers, etc. I knew nothing about this program. And so he got me a interview with the person who was in charge of that program, and that person liked, you know, some writings, because he had just told me to give him 10 of what I considered to be my best poems, and I did. And I passed the interview, and I was qualified for the program, but the program was costing, like, I think it was like 10 grand for a semester. I'm like, I ain't got no $10,000 for no stuff like that. And I told the guy that was fronting for me, you know, I can't meet it. He was happy that I'd even got looked at, much less as accepted. But when he found out that I could actually get accepted, then of course he was a little more on it after that. And so he used some of his influence to get me a conversation with the dean over all of the programs. And so I got to have this conversation with this dean that was supposed to last for 10 minutes. And I was in there with him for about an hour and a half. And when it was over with, he just said that I was one of the most impressive young people that he had spoken to. He'd been there for 35 years, he said. And so he was going to make it possible for me to be in the writing seminars, because he was going to take money out of his budget and put it in their budget so that I could have what they call a writing fellowship, which meant I got paid. So I was in the writing seminars. I had been skipped. I found that out many years later, that they had a 3-year waiting list, and I went to the top of that waiting list immediately and was accepted into the program in the same year that I made application.
It says in your book that your favorite, well, one of your favorite, what's your favorite song?
Oh man, that's easy. If you just talk about favorite songs, it's from Smokey. Ooh, baby, baby. That's my favorite song, man.
No. PSALM.
Oh, you talking about that? 91.
He that dwelleth in the secret place of the
Of
Most
the
High
Most High shall
shall
abide
abide
under
upon
the
the
shadow
shadow
of the
of the
Almighty.
Almighty.
I will say
I
of
will
the Lord,
say of the Lord,
that
He is my
refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him will I trust. That's my favorite song. That's a war
Surely
song.
he shall,
That's a war song.
Surely He will deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence.
He shall cover thee with His feathers,
and under His wings
shall thou trust.
His trust shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night,
or the arrow that flieth by day,
nor the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth
at noonday.
1,000 shall fall at thy side,
and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee.
Only with thine eyes shall thou behold and see the reward
of the wicked.
You know, Mr. Bellamy, I think that's a great segue. I think Donald Trump is a diabolically evil, rotten SOB that if I had the opportunity, I would whip him like they have shown us pictures of slaves being whipped. But in talking with you, you have convinced me that if I am truly a child of God, that I would not deny Donald John Trump the grace and mercy that God has afforded me. That's what you told me. And I'm still trying to wrap my brain around it.
That's a hard one to wrap the brain around.
Yeah, it is.
It's got stuff to do with who we are as human beings. Hold on just a second. It has something to do with who we are as human beings. See, we keep getting the gang mixed up with the singular. God did not send his son for a gang. He sent him for individuals. So what you are as an individual and what you become as a part of that is what God is looking at. He's trying you when you see these challenges. He's not trying Trump. Trump is getting tried for some other stuff. What he's trying you for is to see what you're gonna do about him, how you're gonna treat him. What would you do if you saw him and he was in deep distress and needed help? Would you help him? Because God's thing is about love. It's not about anything else. And we forget that. We get caught up in all of the things that this man has done, all of the things that he is continuing to do, and all of the evil that is coming out of that. But what we miss is he is just a tool being used by greater demons than him. And he's at the mercy of the same evil that we would be at the mercy of if we didn't know Jesus Christ. And some people will argue with that and call that religion, but that's not where I focus it. I don't focus it from a religious perspective. I focus it from the perspective that Jesus himself focused it from, that he was a tool in the hand of God, period. He didn't come to raise up a religion. What he was doing was showing a path. He was showing a way. He was showing how God makes himself manifest for us in many different circumstances in the world, but we keep looking at it like he's only doing it in the church. Bad news. God never sent his son to die for the church. He sent him to die for the world. God so did what? Loved the world. The world was treating him horribly. Nobody in the world was thinking about God, but God was standing on the outside thinking about us, and his way of getting us to show up for him was in love. And that's why that gospel is so focused on love. That's why Jesus was so focused on love and loving your enemy and those that hate you and despitefully use you, which people will say, yeah, but they'll also use you for loving them. And that's true, they will. But that ain't got nothing to do with them. That's got to do with you. They got their debt to pay by ignoring the laws. We have our debt to pay by ignoring the laws too, because we would know them. See, you don't study the Bible and not find that love law. Now they even turned it into a situation that science is involved with now, and can show you that vibration that love functions on leads to clarities that you don't have any idea that you even needed. So it's a lot of other stuff is what I'm trying to say. You know, um, the hardest thing for me to do in my journey has been to ignore bullies. I can't ignore bullies even to the day. You know, people that try to take advantage of you and all that kind of stuff. I always had a hard on for them, and had to be careful with that. But just here recently, in fact, the conversation we had not too many days ago, that conversation was about that very thing, about me being in a position with actually two people like that. And I wasn't taking the position of love. I was taking the position of, these suckers did some stuff to me that I really don't like. And they didn't do it once, they did it more than once. And I was feeling some kind of way about it egotistically. And then we had that conversation, and I realized that God was talking to me. Basically, while I was talking to you, he was talking to me. And he was letting me know, you know, I sent a son to die for that guy. That one that you having the problem with, I sent a son to die for him. So if I sent a son to die for him, what does that put you? Where does that put you at? What should you be doing when it comes to him? And that's when I gave it all up. I'm like, okay, that's it. I ain't got no more to say about it. I'm done with that. I don't have no feelings about it anymore. I could see him today and it would be okay.
That's how you deal with an anger issue, huh?
Yeah, that was my way of learning to. deal with it, because my anger issues usually led to physical violence. You know, in fact, one of the reasons that I used to curse a lot was that I recognized that if I could curse, I wouldn't have to put hands on you. And so I would curse. And the people that knew me knew that it was when I wasn't cursing that you should be concerned, not when I was. And so, but God got that out of me. You know, he got me to the point where I can still get angry, but I don't get angry like that. I could almost get angry like that. I don't get angry like that. I have to realize that the minute I hit that zone, what I have to step out of in order to stay there. You know, you can't love and stay in that place. You can be in that place, but you can't stay in that place. You can recognize it and say, okay, I don't like that. And, you know, I'm going to talk to that person about doing that, but I'm not going to hold it against them. I'm not going to make that a permanent thing that I have to deal with. When I deal with Mr. Trump, I see all the evil he does. But what I'm praying for is that God will change his heart and his mind. Because if that doesn't happen, his spiritual payday is going to be incredibly bad for him. And I wouldn't wish that upon him, nor would I, you know, take any great satisfaction out of any of that stuff happening to him or those that follow him, as far as that's concerned.
In your book, you talk about one of my favorite people, William Hobson.
Brother, Bill.
You talk about William Hobson, yes.
Yeah, Bill. Me and Bill got together, man. You know, it was the same time I was working for the Empowerment Zone. That's when Bill and I got hooked up with each other. We had it was some things I wanted to do that he was willing to do with me. He didn't want to do it with the people that had been before me because, as far as he was concerned, they weren't serious people. But when I talked to him and was telling him where my head was with certain kinds of things that was going on with that Empowerment Zone and what could be, and it was right on time with what he thought and was willing to help with. And so he you know, he gave me that possibility of being able to do that. In fact, we were trying to get some stuff started with some folks in Canada. It just didn't work out. You know, I wished it had worked out, but it didn't work out. But yeah, Bill's good people, man. You know, I enjoyed our relationship with each other. I don't think he's working like that at that level that he was working at before. He might still be.
Oh, even more. Even more.
Yeah.
Even more. Let's get into some of these people you have mentored.
Man, people tell me I didn't mentor them. I don't even know that I've mentored them. When they tell me that I mentored them, I'm shocked because I don't see it like that. For me, I'm just being the best me I can be, and people are looking at that and benefiting from that. But it's not like I'm there, you know, with them every day or anything. I've had people tell me that they watched me and learned certain things and considered me a mentor that I didn't even know they were watching me. You know, I got a few people like that were telling me stuff like that. I think one that stood out the most, and it's funny in a sense, is I used to run every morning. Every morning, I get up, bam, I'm out running, and I ran into this guy some years after I'd stopped running because my knees got to the point where, because I was running with the wrong stuff on, my knees had got impacted by it and I couldn't run, so I had started walking then. But this guy, he saw me one day and he says, "I remember you." Looking at him, I don't know him from Adam. He said, "You used to run by my window every morning at 6:15 He said, I could set my clock by you. He said, that's how I knew. He said, if I didn't see you, I would think that I miss you. I'm getting ready to be late for work. He said, and I said to myself, if that old man can run in all kinds of weather, I got no excuse. He said, and you started me to running. I had no idea I was even being watched. You don't know who you're mentoring. You mentor more people by folks that stand on the outside watching you, that you don't even know, who've considered you a mentor more than you've actually been in some mentoring relationship with them. You were in one with them without even knowing it. And most of the people that I've ended up with somebody telling me that I mentored them, that's how it happened. It happened because they were watching me do what I did.
What do you want people to get out of this book?
The lesson that I don't care where you start from, that there can be tremendous change, and that it all comes from how you fix your thoughts, your minds, your actions, and your activities. You can be anything you decree that you want to be, but you got to decree it. And you got to mean it when you decree it, because, you know, the thing is somebody did some research and they showed that water had memory attached to it. I don't know if you've seen that research, that water had memory attached to it. And it started because they started studying the work that was done by the Japanese, I can't remember his name now, but he was studying water, and he was studying the impact of words spoken on water. And he would take jars of water and put different labels on them: hate, love, those labels on them. And then he would, you know, take them out and put them under microscope to see the composition of the water based on the word that was written on the container that they were in. And what he saw was that everything that was hateful was dark, murky, and didn't appear clear. You wouldn't see it because the water looked clear to the human eye, but down there in the molecular level of it, all kind of bad stuff was going on. And that the exact opposite was happening with things that had love, joy, peace, you know, those kind of words attached to them. And what they saw was something that was sparkling. And he actually took pictures of this stuff. You can go look up that research, you know, that you can Google that research and see it for yourself. But it showed you the difference in that. And then somebody else later came along and said, well, you know, the body is, I think, what, 73% water. And that if written words had impact on what the water looked like, what do you think spoken words would look like? What kind of impact would they have on the human body? And it's what you say, it's how you say it, it's what you mean when you're saying it, etc., that actually forms and shapes who you're going to be. And I think it becomes obvious in that book that I had a life change. And I attribute that life change to a relationship with Jesus Christ, but not a religious relationship with Jesus Christ, a spiritual relationship with him. Because what people don't realize is that love does not have a religious title that can be hung on it. It's love. And if every religion that you really look at, the basis for them is always going to be love. If they're
So
real.
love is at the center, like on a wheel, and these religions are spokes that should lead to love, right?
Well, it should lead to the one who love flows from, because God is love.
That's what Lionel Richie meant. Jesus is love.
It doesn't matter, right? Or anybody else that love is flowing from, that is producing, call them miracles if you will, but it's really just life paths, and what's on that life path for all of us, because we're not locked out of any of this. You know, we hold it prisoner by the way we relate to it. You know, it's not like God fixed it so that you can't get in it. You can't, you know, learn this stuff, or that you in a religion that won't teach it. I mean, they had a guy in China, and he didn't have a Bible. He wasn't attached to anything that was spiritual. He was just a man that was crossing a bridge every day, watching people jump off and kill themselves, and decided one day that he was going to stop somebody. And he did. He stopped a person from killing himself, talked to him, whatever they needed at that particular time that he could provide, he did it, and he saved a life. So when he saved that one life, he started taking more concern for the other lives. Eventually, that was his job. He wasn't working anymore. He was just on that bridge saving lives. God took care of everything else for him. You know, what he ate, where he slept, all that stuff was taken care of. He didn't have to go to work to get it. God was giving it to him based on what he was doing. And what he was doing was showing a lot of people some love that was coming from God. And what God was trying to get these people to understand is, I love you. Why are you killing yourself? Why are you doing this? I got a way for you. And this guy didn't have a Bible. He didn't know anything about Jesus. He was a Chinese guy. But it's the same thing. Because that love is what God is looking for when he look at our hearts. He ain't looking for your religion. He ain't looking for how many times you went to church. He's looking for how many times you did what church told you should be doing. He'll see that. He happy. He's good with you at that. You know, it doesn't matter that you didn't get, you know, them, you know, 1,100 sermons. Because you learn what the sermons were about. And the sermons is all about how you treating somebody else. That's the sermon. You know, when people are looking for how to be holy, I just tell them how you treating others and starting with you. Because if you can't treat yourself right, you're never going to treat somebody else right. First thing I had to do was forgive me. And that was the hardest thing I had to do because I couldn't do it. I couldn't forgive me. It took God telling me, how many times am I going to have to tell you I forgave you for that? And you still over there digging in it. That's gone. It's not there no more. It took me a long time for that because I wanted to punish me. Because that's what religion teaches you, that, you know, that when you do something wrong, you should be punished. That ain't how God looks at it. He's just looking at, did you learn the lesson? That's how I try to raise my
If you
kids.
don't learn the lesson, then you got to repeat the class.
There you go. You got to repeat the class. That's how I raised my kids. When they messed up, the first thing I wanted to know is, what did you learn? What did you learn from that? And then I'd listen to what they thought the lesson was, or didn't have one. Oh, I ain't gonna tell them that, you know, that kind of stuff. But that was it. The only thing I wanted to know is, did you learn what is necessary not to do that dumb stuff again? And that's what God's lesson to us. And that's why he gives us so much love, so that we can learn it. He's like, look, hey, I know you're going to mess up. It's not a way for you not to. You're here to mess up so that you can learn how not to mess up. If I made you perfect, you wouldn't even need to be here. And then what would you learn? You wouldn't learn a thing. Perfection can teach you nothing. But the path to it can teach you everything.
Mr. Bellamy, any final thoughts before we get out of here for the day?
The only thing I'm going to say is, man, much love to you for what you do. I'm thankful that I know you. I'm thankful that we're on terms with each other. I praise you all the time for the work that you put in, because I know how much you putting in. Most people don't. And I love you, brother. I know you know that by now. If you don't, I'm going to put it on the air so the people know that I love you too. And that's the only thing that I got for anybody. Yeah, I will flare up. I will go off. I'll get nasty on occasion. But I have never been nasty with anybody that I didn't come back and apologize to them for it, because I knew it was just a slip. It wasn't a permanent situation. Because love don't allow you to ever have a permanent situation of disregard for another human being. It's not possible for that. Not if you hook into God. If you hook into God, he's going to have forgiveness on your plate. Because if you don't forgive, he can't forgive. And he tells you that in the word. If you can't forgive, I can't forgive you.
We say it all the time. Forgive us as we forgive others. We say it in the Lord's Prayer. We don't think about it.
We don't think about it.
Forgive us our debts as we
We
forgive
forgive
others.
those. Mm-hmm.
Even Donald Trump.
Even Donald Trump.
Good God Almighty.
Good God indeed Almighty.
You sure I can't just snatch him for one day and throw him in the trunk of the car?
I understand perfectly, man, because I always say to myself, I don't think I could be in the same room with him without smacking him in his mouth. But I understand that the man is a byproduct of what he has experienced in his humanity.
What
And
was
when
it,
you,
his daddy?
yeah, it was his daddy, man. His daddy messed him up. I'm gonna tell you how his daddy messed him up. His father gave him stuff, but he never gave it to him because he respected him. He gave it to him because he was a mess up, and he knew he. And his way of giving him the stuff was saying, "I know you ain't gonna do no better. I know you're gonna mess this up, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway." And that's what he did. And that's why he's so focused on being a loser all the time when it comes to him, because that's how his dad was treating him, because he knew he was one. He knew he was a loser. That's why he gave him $43 million, and he couldn't even keep that and turn that into anything. He ended up getting bankrupt for all that. Now he keeps lying about that, but that's the truth. His father gave him $43 million. He made out like he didn't give him nothing. Because everything Donald Trump has done in order to meet his father's expectation has been lies, because he's never met his father's expectation, and he doesn't think he ever will.
And you
So
say that's why he is attracted to dictators.
that's why he's attracted to dictators. He just wants somebody that has a lot of power and is ruthless to tell him he's okay. You all right, Dom? You okay, baby? Anybody that does that to him, he's gonna wrap him all around their finger.
See, all he needed was 5 minutes under my daddy's roof, and my daddy would have corrected that pretty soon, pretty swiftly.
No doubt. I know mine would have. I know mine would have. But it doesn't matter, man. None of that matters if you learn the lesson. What matters? See, the guy on the cross that was next to Jesus when they was crucifying three and not one. One of those guys on that cross woke up on the cross. At the point of death, he woke up. And he didn't wake up false. He woke up real. And he said, man, look, they killing me for what I've done. But you haven't done nothing. And he called him Lord, because he was acknowledging the fact that he was. And he was acknowledging his own mess and saying, I deserve this, but you don't. That's the one that ended up in paradise. Why? Because he learned his lesson of why he was on that cross. And that's all God is ever looking for us to learn, is that lesson. Yeah, you're going to mess up, but what you going to do afterwards? What you going to do with the mess up when it's pointed out to you, you messed up? Are you going to change it, or you going to keep doing it? Donald Trump, he just keeps doing it. You cannot point it out to him because he keeps doing it. You tell him that and he'll just keep acting like what he said was the truth, knowing he's telling a lie.
You got a lot of people out there watching this broadcast, Mr. Bellamy. He's got a new book out, Reds, a memoir, Avon J. Bellamy. Where's it available?
Well, actually, right now, Shopify, there's a deal being worked out with Shopify for that. But if anybody that wants to get it can get it directly from me. I can give you, if you have Cash App or Zelle, either one of those, all you have to do is just, get in touch with me through that and make sure I got your correct address and everything, and you'll get sent the book.
Good deal. Mr. Avon Bellamy, we thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience this morning. CIAA is going on right now. The Donnie Glover Show will be on tomorrow, Saturday at 12 midnight on Channel 2. We got to get you on that show, Mr. Bellamy.
If I have to be up at 12 o'clock at night, you can forget it.
We're going to send you an on-demand link. That way you can watch it when you like.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. It's always a pleasure when I'm with you. You know that you bring out the best in me.
Well, hold up. This lady want to say hello to you. How you doing? Say hello to Mr. Bellamy.
Hello, Avon. It's
Is that
Sharetta.
Sharetta?
Yes,
Is that
we must catch up.
Is that
It's been
Sharetta?
too long. Yes, it's me.
My
Hi.
God, girl. Oh man.
I know. As soon as I heard Black Wall Street, I knew you were somewhere around. I didn't know where, but
Girl, look, I'm telling you, I have missed talking to you. We used to have Al yearly. We'd have Al yearly.
no.
I miss Al yearly, to tell you the
Here,
truth.
we would have lunch. And
You
there
will
was
have to, girl. I cannot stand anymore. I tried to get in touch with you. I don't think your old numbers that I had are working.
I've had this number for a while, and then I'll get a message from you, but then when I call back, I can't get through.
That don't
So
make sense. Well, I'm gonna call you on that. If that's the number, I'm gonna call you on that number. So get ready to get a call.
961. Okay, the 961. And I have a meeting at 11. So if
Oh no, I ain't gonna try to call you today.
time you call me.
No,
Okay.
I'll call you another time. Because I know you're a busy woman. You out there doing things.
Mr. Bellamy, thank you very much. Good morning, world.
Oh man, you just made my day if you gave me her. That works for me.